What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Tuya Strength. This is on loan to me from the Apex Pass Around group, and when I signed up for it, I didn't realize how insanely cool this knife actually is. So not only is it an integral, meaning that our entire handle is made out of a single piece of titanium, and nowhere is that more obvious than when we take a look at the spine of the knife, and you can see there is not a seam in sight, but also just a well thought out design. Pretty good looking knife overall in my opinion. A ton of different deployment methods that are all super snappy, so it makes it super fun to fidget with. Great materials, we get Bohler M390 and titanium on the handle, and a great build quality overall. So just a super cool piece to check out. Now if you want to pick it up, this configuration over on the Tuya website is $440, and I'll make sure to leave a link to it down in the description of the video. They do offer some other configurations, so pricing will vary depending on which model you end up picking. Now, one thing that I really love about this blacked out version is overall super clean look. You can see very minimal billboarding, in fact no visual billboarding when the knife is deployed, and it's got kind of an overall stealthy look to it. They use DLC coating, which is one of my favorite types of coatings on a knife over stuff like PVD or Cerakote. I think PVD just looks a lot better, gives it this nice kind of flat look to it. But I really love the pop of color that we get with our pocket clip, which it still has that overall stealth look. It's pretty subtle, doesn't draw too much attention, but just the right amount of color there in my opinion. And my favorite part about that is that it's actually randomized. So when you order this, the pocket clip that you get is going to be a random color. This one has sort of a purple background with gold striping, but yours may be two completely different colors entirely, or even multiple colors entirely, and even different patterns. This seems like a pretty randomized anodization pattern on here, so each one should be unique to your knife, and so that's a really cool thing about those randomized pocket clips. Now in terms of the sizing, this one's pretty mid-sized, I'd say, at 7¼ inches in overall length. That gives us 4.125 inches to work with on our handle. Titanium handles once again, and I think a great looking design on here, contouring in all the right places. And I love that kind of peak in the middle. We have a flat section for the first half of the knife, but then it starts to slope downwards towards the butt of the knife. Now I don't know that that's offering anything in terms of ergos, but it's definitely not taking anything away either. No hot spots on this knife. That 4.125 inches does allow me to get a full forefinger grip on here. And so you can see it is a little bit on the tighter side, so if your hands are a little bit bigger than mine, you may get that situation where your pinky's sort of half on, half off the back end of the handle, and that's where our lanyard hole may come into play. May be worthwhile to add a lanyard there if you do have larger hands. Now the other option is what I would prefer, and that is to creep up onto this flat section underneath the pivot, and that does offer the real estate to do that, because even though we have flipper tabs, they disappear on the handle because of the design of how those flipper tabs are integrated. And so I love that about it, because that's one thing I usually don't like about regular flipper tabs, is that they protrude out at the bottom of the knife and take up the spot where I'd prefer to grip, and so it really destroys my ergos on those knives, and I think visually are a little bit of an eyesore. But here I'm able to sit right here very comfortably, and you can see how relaxed my grip is. Now I have plenty of room to spread out if I need a little bit of extra real estate, so do really like that part of the design as well. Now in terms of our blade, 3.0625 inches, we've got a drop point style blade, Bohler M390 on the steel, again with that DLC coating. Have a flat grind, really nice usable edge here, and great sizing on it as well. Like I said, pretty mid-sized, but 3 inches is gonna get you through most situations that you're going to encounter throughout the day. Have a nice wedge on almost the entirety of the backside of that knife, but it does stop at our thumb stud, giving us a nice landing spot for our thumb. And that's one thing that I wouldn't mind seeing the jimping extended here. This jimping really isn't added for your grip, it's added for the flipper tab, and so it stops short. Now the knife itself isn't slippery, I have a great locked in grip, so I don't really need it, but I wouldn't mind seeing that jimping go out to our thumb stud here. Now the deployment is great. We have 4 different deployment methods, which we'll take a look at in a moment here, and then a frame lock with plenty of access. You'll see it just drops shed on you. Single shake will usually get you the rest of the way, but then we have both a regular flipper tab as well as a front flipper, and then our thumb studs, which give you enough access for the thumb flick as well as our middle finger flick. Both of those work really well. And then again, the flipper tabs are kind of cut out into the handle and they don't protrude out the backs or sides of the knife, and so that's what allows them to tuck in when you open it. Another nice thing is that all of our branding is on those flipper tabs, so we have the Tuya logo over here, and what I would imagine is the maker's mark on the back side, but when you open it up, you can see there's no visual branding on this knife, so super subtle there, and I absolutely love that about it because I think that does kind of lend to an overall just better looking knife without all of the extra branding all over the place, so that's really great. The other cool thing is with all these different deployment methods, you can't really identify one as the primary deployment method, and what I mean is usually the more and more deployment methods you get, one just has better action than the rest, but you'll notice these are super snappy no matter which one that you go with, and so each one could be the primary deployment method, and I'd have a hard time singling one out. And so that means that it's just all of them are really well executed because there's not one kind of falling behind. The detent feels just about right on them. They're all super smooth and snappy and easy to access. Sometimes with Framelock, it can be hard to get that middle finger access without also pushing on the lock bar. Sometimes the flipper tabs are tucked into weird spots, and so that front flipper isn't super intuitive, where this one just rolls right around the top, and so just really well executed across the board. Now the one downside to this knife, I know I've talked a lot of really good things, only downside I really have is that it's a little bit on the heavy side. It's not egregious, but 4.45 ounces for a knife this size is definitely on the heavier side, so maybe there's something that could be done in the way of weight savings, but honestly not that big of a knock on it. One other really weird thing that I like about it, and it's not going to make a difference to really anyone else probably, is that it has a flat butt here, and so with like a flashlight, it's great to be able to tail stand it. With a knife, it makes no sense, especially with an open knife. There's no reason you would want to tail stand it, but I like that it has that ability for whatever reason, even though it offers no benefit functionality wise. Just kind of a cool thing that I like about it. Now, it also ships with this really nice leather pouch, and so this is super soft on the outside, even softer on the inside. It says, thank you for adding a Tuya knife to your collection. Believe it or not, this is actually the first time I've even handled a Tuya knife. Not checked one out on the channel, but even handled one. So really impressed with this. There's a couple more that I signed up for on the pass around group, so definitely won't be the last time you see them, but definitely has me considering picking some up for the collection as well. I think this is just absolutely killer knife. Let me know what you think of it though down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, joining the channel as a member, checking out some of my other videos. All help the channel out